Changing the brain. We all know that we need to change the brain. It's how you overcome addiction and compulsive behaviors. And we all have experienced our brain change in the past. So we know it's possible. We do. But there's this huge missing piece, I think, in the sex and porn addiction recovery space that people don't really talk about. And in my opinion, the most critical piece to recovery and to changing the brain. And we see examples of this everywhere. It's not unique to psychology and addiction recovery. It's actually every single day in sales and our day-to-day interactions. The brain wants what it wants, and it's going to get what it wants. You know, a lot of us like to think that our wife's enough, our kids are enough, or our faith in some sort of God or higher power is enough. But the truth is, it's not. And if your wife and kids or God was enough to keep you sober, you would be sober right now, or you would get sober very, very quickly. The truth is, they're not enough, and it's because the brain, that stuff is all like human stuff, right? That is, as culturally we have decided to adopt monogamy. Culturally, we have decided to have kids and have this kind of unit where two partners are living in a home, raising kids separate from the community. Culturally, we have invented these various religions and the world's religions that exist. But, you know, these were all man-made inventions, right? The brain doesn't really know about any of that because the brain has existed in humans for thousands upon thousands of years. The brain existed prior to monogamy. The brain existed prior to this interesting kind of way of raising kids in this kind of isolated, disconnected environment. The brain existed before the world's religions. The brain has been inside of humans forever. And it cares about one thing: your happiness, you thriving, you avoiding pain, you getting what you want. That's what brains do. They help us become the best person and live the best life that we can live. So, if you're going to change the brain, you need to sell it. And this is the biggest missing piece, is selling the brain. Good therapists, if you've ever had a really, really, really good therapist, I bet you that the reason they were able to help you change faster than any other therapist was they were better at selling your brain on a superior alternative. Every time. That's what separates, not so great therapists from great therapists, is their ability to listen to your brain's rationale and their ability to make a statement that says, well, brain, you just told me that you want this, this, and this, correct? And the brain goes, yep, those are what I want. And then the therapist says, well, won't you get more of that if you do this? And then the brain goes, that's a really good point. And that's a powerful therapy session. So if we're thinking about sex and porn addiction recovery, I believe that this is the miss. I believe that we are not selling the brain on a superior alternative. We're just telling it to stop. We're saying, hey, stop looking at naked women. Stop looking at these pornographic videos. Stop lusting after women, attractive women at the gym. Stop staring at that girl over there in her thong bathing suit, right? It's all about stop, 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 stop. You know what the brain's reaction is going to be to that? Well, I do know, because a lot of you guys listening are addicts, are sexually compulsive. And you guys probably know how well that goes. It doesn't go very well. The brain's like, yeah, don't care. And so, yeah, can you override it? Sure, you can override it. But again, can you override it long term? Well, the research would indicate no, right? The research would show that only 36% of men are actually able to stay sexually sober beyond 5 years post-discovery, right? So the point is, I don't think that we have a really good grip on this. If 36% of men are experiencing a significant relapse, and for those of you who have gone to 12-step rooms, there's not a lot of sober guys in those rooms, right? It's a huge struggle. And my point is, I think we're approaching it, I know we're approaching it wrong. The reason that we see such outstanding recovery in the substance addiction space is it's a lot easier of a sale, right? To tell a heroin addict, alcoholic, or a cocaine, somebody who's addicted to some sort of drug or substance, and their life's being ruined. They're like literally losing their jobs. Their health is declining. It's a pretty easy sell to the brain and be like, hey, brother, we got to stop injecting this stuff into our arm. It's killing us, and we're going to lose our ability to live a normal life. Right? We've got to stop this. It's an easy sale. But now let's look at sex and porn addiction. A lot harder sale, right? We don't need cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, alcohol. Sex, on the other hand, we need it. We know we need it. If we don't do it, then the human race will disappear, right? So we know it's baked into our DNA, sex and sex appeal, sex and sexual attraction. And there's a gain from it too, right? So when I go tell the brain, hey, you can't use cocaine anymore, the brain's like, okay, well, what else are we going to do? There's a pretty long list of exciting, fun things in life to do. There is. And it's not that hard of a sale. Telling them to stop trying to get attention, validation, to feel respected, to feel admired, that's a hard sale, right? If your brain has latched on to using women and flirting with women, staring at women, whatever it is, if you want that woman to lust after you, and so you are dressing a certain way, acting a certain way, so that she gives you her attention, and you're telling your brain to stop getting it, stop getting that attention, your brain's going to be like, well, what else are we going to do? And you're going to say, what? Oh, we're going to go practice Spanish on Duolingo instead. Or we're going to go read a novel. That's a tough sale, right? This is why guys relapse. This is why guys experience slips. Is the buy-in is a lot more of a challenge when we're talking about sex and porn addiction, because we are hitting on things that some very real human needs that these things can deliver on, right? An affair actually can deliver on that, right? It's wrong. And it's horrible what you did to your wife, right? Lying about it, none of that's okay. But did that affair get you the thing that you wanted? Yeah, it did, right? Did that one night stand get it for you? Sure, in the moment, right? And so that's the thing, is the brain's kind of figured out a way of getting what it wants, and you need to sell it on another strategy. If you do not sell it, you will relapse. You will relapse for the rest of your life. Right? You'll have these periods of sobriety, but then you'll relapse. And the brain in these different moments is going to tell you, hey, I know how to get that. I know how to feel really respected and attractive right now. We're going to go do that. We're going to make a tons of money. We're going to go buy a new car and a new wristwatch, and then we're going to go flex and flaunt it in front of as many women as we can to get their attention, right? Or whatever it is that your brain has decided to latch onto. But the point is, it has a good recipe of getting what it wants, and you need to sell it that there is a better way. So I'm going to give you an example of this, and I think this is missing in the sex addiction field because guys don't have peers that their successful men don't have enough successful, accomplished men with a similar process addiction to theirs to get the sale. So let me give you the example, and then I'll talk more about that. So the example is, let's say you're after respect and admiration, right? You want to be seen as and feel like an accomplished male who has done something that society considers is very admirable. Okay, so let's say that's something that you want to feel. Well, you go off to a pool party and you find some of the most attractive women at the party and you try to get them to sleep with you. And let's say you're successful. One of them decides to go back to your room and sleep with you that night. Is that success? Is that admiration? I don't think so, right? When we look at Tiger Woods, after everybody found out about what Tiger Woods was doing, he lost everybody's respect, right? He lost all his sponsors, right? Now, that was a huge hit to his legacy, right? No one will ever look at him the same. So that's what I'm talking about with selling the brain, right? So you would come to the brain and you would say, yeah, you know what? We could go to this party and we could whiten our teeth. We could get all tan. We could go work out for months, and we could go and spend a bunch of money and impress these women and try to sleep with them. That is one strategy. But is that really success? Is that really admiration, right? Is that really being an accomplished male? Is that something that society is actually going to admire you for? The answer is no, right? And there's actually a lot of evidence to suggest that you would lose their respect. If your kids found out that was what you're doing, your kids would lose respect for you. They might not even speak to you again. If they found out that you were doing that behind their mom's back, yeah, there's a really good chance that they wouldn't speak to you again, right? So is that really admiration? Now your brain's like, whoa, okay, hold on. All right, so your brain's processing. It's like it's seeing the flaws in its chosen strategy. Then it becomes open to a new strategy, and that's where we make the sale. Right? So, we say, what if real respect and admiration is accomplishing something hard, right? What if real admiration comes to men who are doing things that other people aren't willing to do, right? Inventing something new, right? Solving a problem that's really challenging that nobody's been able to solve, right? Those are the people that we respect, right? The names that we remember, the Martin Luther King Jr.'s, it's the people who stepped up and did something big for humanity. That's how you become remembered, right? That's how you leave a legacy that matters. Not hooking up with a 26-year-old that you met at a pool party, right? And so your brain starts to understand, okay, you know what? That's a good point. I like that. But here is the big missing piece. And that is, in order for the brain to be sold, it has to feel like the other person positioning this information, they respect this person. They feel like this person understands what it's like to be you, what it's like to walk in your shoes. what it's like to have grown up in your environment, what it's like to want the same things that you want to accomplish, right? If you don't feel like you relate to this person and you respect them and you admire them, your brain is not going to believe a word that they say. And I think that is the missing piece, I believe, in recovery, especially if you're a high-achieving entrepreneurial male. It is really hard to sell high achievers. They often come off very uncoachable and rigid. But I don't think that they are uncoachable. I think they have a clear idea of what they want to accomplish, and they're only going to listen to people who have accomplished that thing. And that, I believe, is the missing piece in sex addiction recovery. I think that your brain, in order to change, in order to really stop doing its old patterns, it has to meet someone who it respects and admires. It feels like they relate to this person, that they can see themselves in this individual. And then that person tells you an alternative way, a superior way of getting what the brain wants. That's how change happens. My proof to this is sales, right? Think about when you are sold. The number one piece in sales is relatability, right? Having to prove to the customer or the client that you understand what their problem is, how it's affecting them, how hard it is to have that problem, how badly they want to escape it, right? And if you can reflect that to the client, that you truly understand what it's like to be in their shoes, they are 1,000% more likely to listen to you, buy or buy whatever it is that you're selling. For the parents who are listening to this, it's the same thing. If you have kids, if you have teenagers are the hardest to sell, right? Because you have to make it advantageous for them in their life, or they are not going to listen to you, right? We really aren't that different, right? The brain is really no different. The brain is like, hey, cool, I hear that, but I kind of like my strategy better. And the only way to change it is if somebody who that person's brain, their belief system, admires that individual, feels like that individual is actually saying something that really resonates with how they're designed. And I think this is why high-achieving men, entrepreneurial men, business professionals really struggle in the sex addiction space. Isn't because it's harder for successful men like us. I don't think that's why we struggle. I think we struggle because our brain processes are after certain things, and if they're going to change, we need somebody who we really consider to be like us, struggling like us, with the same aspirations and desires, to tell us what's wrong with our chosen methods in a superior way. And I just want to really reiterate on this last piece. Your brain is looking for a superior strategy to get what it wants. If it wants respect, you need to teach it how to get it. If it wants to be admired and lusted after, you need to teach it a better way than sex, right? If it wants to go look at porn because it wants to numb out and get a massive dopamine hit to just kind of unplug, what are you going to give it that can rival porn, right? I mean, that's the piece. Is the brain says every single time, nah, your strategy sucks, mine's better. And this is the key to relapse. So take-home messages. Find someone or someone's, either a peer support group or a therapist, or ideally both. A therapist who you respect, who your brain really feels like it respects and admires, and it feels like understands what it's like to be you. Find a peer group full of men who have the same addiction like you, right? Because in sex addiction, this is kind of hard to find, right? Because process addiction, every single guy has a unique brain process that they're addicted to. And if you go to 12-step meetings, a lot of guys they're addicted to nudity, sex, porn, child porn, stealing, underwear from women, to breaking into their homes. You're going to find these wide variety of processes that men have become addicted to. And if they're different from yours, do you think your brain's going to be sold in that room? Or if they are that different than you, do you think that you are actually going to change the brain in there while listening to a bunch of people who have a very different process addiction than you do? I don't think so. And this is really my story, and why I founded my program, The Successful Addict, was my brain was changing extremely slowly. And it was because I did not resonate with my therapist. I did not feel like my therapist knew what it was like to be a successful male in the United States. And when I would go to my different peer groups, most of the guys in the room, they made in a year what I make in a month. I mean, we just lived a totally different lifestyle. And so, their struggles were just night and day different than mine. I don't have a boss. I don't have a middle manager that pisses me off and makes me want to act out, right? I don't have a wife that I hate and a life or a job that I hate. I love my life. I love my job. I love my wife. Right? So I just can't really connect to these other individuals who are trying to escape their life, because I love my life. I want to lean into my life. My problem, and like a lot of other successful men, is different. I was not using this as an escape or a way to unplug. I was using this as a means. And so if I'm going to stop these practices, I need to sell my brain on a superior way of getting what it wants. Otherwise, just going to relapse. It's a matter of time.